any company, so long as they have the items. While we know there's the memorandum that guides the company, and I would wish even senior to confirm that you do not just do business without not restricting yourself to the memorandum and the articles. So is a CEO in order to again just throw words and mislead this committee?
Senator Gitura, would you wish to engage
Honorable Jagagu on this? I don't know why he wants to engage me on that point. But I can also remind him that a company can have as its main object car hire business, but inside there have very many other objects for which they are formed.
Fine, we'll get.
And you may want to look into that memorandum and see whether in there, among the very many of them, there could be just one clause allowing them to engage in trade. So I think.
Well put, Senator. We'll get to that.
But you wanted a clarification, Honorable Jagagu.
We'll get to that.
I'm trying to give you a clarification so that the House is, if you want my opinion, the House is not misled under the guise that I'm the one who gave that opinion.
Honorable Jagagu, we would be interested to know your relationship with the Senator. You seem to like pulling his leg or engaging him a lot. But that is a matter of lawyers, so rest it there. Honorable Dr. Manjari, would you proceed?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And finally, I would wish to comment on the question that was raised earlier on the commitment letters. These commitment letters were given during this unprecedented time, and most of the items we could not go to our pre-qualified suppliers or the listed suppliers or registered suppliers with KEMSA because they were not stock items. I would wish to point to the House the issue of the nitrile gloves. We didn't have a framework contract, neither did we have a supplier who could supply that. The PPE. The PPEs, as you, the PPEs were not stock items in KEMSA, and the only other time we used PPEs was during the Ebola emergency, and a few suppliers whom we contacted at that time had excess or remnants of what had been left after they supplied the government during the Ebola time. So we did this in consultation with the procurement director, and a question was asked whether we'll continue engaging in emergency procurement for COVID, since COVID is already with us. I would wish to say that we have since even advertised for COVID-related procurement under Global Fund, amounting to 517 million of the 5 items, and the evaluation of those procurement is ongoing. And once it's concluded, my teacher, Honorable Eseli, I would wish to tell you and confirm to you humbly that the prices that will be reflected after the conclusion of that procurement that we are undertaking currently will be the benchmark that we'll be using to continue going forward as open default method of open international or national tender, as the case may be. We are also being guided and following very closely through the modeling that is being every day given by the WHO, the Ministry of Health, and we are glad that we are flattening the curve. But the frontline health workers are still at risk, and these commodities, we want to give assurance that we have adequate stocks, and these stocks will be continuously used to protect the health care workers in this country. If there is any a question that I've not touched on, I would wish my procurement director, colleague, and the finance director, and the Commercial Director to clarify on any point that I've left, because some of the questions were also falling for their confirmation.
Point of clarification.
What is it, Honorable Cross?
Yeah, I'm still not satisfied with this answer on the companies which I asked, Chair.
On
the companies which I asked him to give us details, because I know 2 or 3 companies everywhere. DK Relief, Angelica, Panaceo, please tell us the truth. And who are the proxies who are using these companies, whom you're always meeting and they're always calling you?
As he answers, if you have any evidence, Honorable Koros, you can also table the evidence.
Chair, I have evidence, Chair.
Okay, you can table the evidence. So as CEO answers.
Thank you. As I said earlier, I don't have any relationship with those said companies. Angelica, DK Relief, Shop and Buy, Megascope, Comitel, everywhere, and the other one, I guess, he mentioned everywhere, and I'll also be as keen as you are to see the evidence that will be tabled, Madam Chair.
So you'll approach the chair and table the evidence if you have it, Honorable Koros. Let's proceed to Mr. Juma, procurement. And having looked at this document, I think as we pick from there, we only see 2 communications under the emergency response component, and also another one on 13th May, authority to undertake procurement of health products under Global Fund grants. Do you have any other letter giving you authority to procure goods under this emergency?
Yes, Honorable Chair, that I can be able to confirm, because I don't have access to the office. The acting director can be able to provide authority letters from the others, from the Minister of Health, from the PS.
So was there any other apart from those 2?
There was one for procurement from buyer sensor. I think I can remember.
Okay.
The vote on that. But I just want to inquire, Mr. Juma, do you have an email access where you are corresponding through emails as well? I mean, you can't just claim easily saying that you don't have access to the office. You might have access to your emails as well. So there must be other forms of communications that you've been doing between yourselves and the ministry.
On the matter of the letters which we received from the ministry, there were hard copy letters which were addressed to the CEO, received in the CEO's office and marked to procurement. Those ones can be provided, Madam Chair. The letters are available. They can be provided.
Chair.
Proceed.
Chair.
Yes.
Could we allow him to proceed and then we can intervene?
On the same, Chair.
On the letters?
Yes, Chair. You remember the last time KEMSA management came to face this committee. We requested as a committee for them to avail to us all the documents pertaining to COVID monies expenditure. Chair, as a witness, we didn't receive any of those documents, which shows they was telling Bwana CEO all along, this CEO has never wanted to work with this committee. And that's why, Chair, even when we requested for important documents,
Honorable Koros, I think you're out of order. We are talking about an acting CEO. There's a suspended CEO.
The suspended CEO, Chair.
But he cannot provide documents on behalf of
then
KEMSA,
we had requested even then before all this scam came, Chair.
Okay, that's on a different agenda, but the acting CEO would require those documents, what Honorable Koros is alluding to. They can come together with the other documents we had requested earlier.
Noted, we stand guided.
Thank you. Proceed, Mr. Juma.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. On the question which was asked by Honorable Dr. Eseli, was procurement involved in all issuing of commitment letters I want to confirm to this committee, yes, we were involved in the commitment letters, but not all of them. All the Indian letters from the suppliers were addressed to the CEO, received in the CEO's office, and marked to procurement. But I want to confirm to this committee that there are a few letters which were handled in the CEO's office. They were processed and commitment letters issued. So procurement was not involved in about 9 commitment letters. It came to our attention only when delivery had been made to White House, is when we knew that commitment letters had been issued to the suppliers. So, but all the others, we were involved from the word go.
So you have the list of those 9?
Yes, we have a list of those 9, including the one, I think, which has come so clear in the media, the Kilik Limited. The Kilik Limited, the commitment letter for 4 billion. I can be able to confirm this committee that procurement was not involved. We only came to note of its issued letter, and I brought to the attention of the CEO advising that that commitment letter should be cancelled or revoked. I have an advisory which I wrote on 4th of June to the CEO.
You have that document too?
Yes,
You will table those two?
I have an advisory.
Yeah, but we'll come back to you, CEO, to explain about that.
Yes.
So proceed, Mr. Juma.
On the question asked by Honorable Owino, that having a technical person in KEMSA, knowing the procedures, why did the KEMSA overcommit? I want to bring to the attention of these committees that we knew that the budget for health products and technologies was 4.6 billion, and therefore when we were issuing the commitment letters, we were aware that we were not supposed to surpass that budget. On 21st of April, we had a senior management meeting, and I brought to the attention of the committee that we had reached 3.9 billion. And therefore, I advised that we should be able to stop further issuing of commitment letters. And that meeting, it was agreed. The CEO was the one who chaired, and all the directors were in attendance. We agreed that we should not be able to issue any further commitment. But then the issuing of this commitment letter continued, and therefore, on 24th of April 2020, and Honorable Member asked, did procurement provide advisory in writing? I did provide advisory in writing, and in that advisory, one of the things I had indicated that all procurement should be within the approved budget. And therefore, in this advisory that I gave, I indicated that we had reached a budget of 3,996,636,560. And my advice to the committee was that we should stop any further issuing of commitment letters. But then I think it continued. So I have an advisory in writing. And on 15th of May, I issued another professional opinion advising senior management that we had adequate quantities of 12 items, that is surgical face masks, K95, K99, N95 with the respirator, personal protective equipment, face shield, surgical gloves, nitrile gloves, pair of goggles, infrared thermometers, instant heart sanitizers, and ventilators. And in this advisory, I indicated that we should put on hold any new direct procurement, because at this particular moment, the procurement of COVID item had surpassed the budget, and we had reached a budget total commitment of 5,324,481,200. We had therefore surpassed the budget by 668 million. So in this advisory, I advised that these items which I indicated in this opinion, we had adequate stocks and there should be no more procurements. And the last advisory I gave is on 4th of June, 2020. And in this advisory, I advised that the procurement of COVID had reached the tune of 7,699,260,500. We had therefore surpassed the budget by 3 billion. And I was advising that based on this procurement and also on what was at place, that we had already surpassed the budget. And I also indicated in this advisory or opinion that it had been brought to my attention that there was a commitment letter to Kilik. And in this, I advised that this commitment letter to Kilik was worth 4 billion. And therefore, its commitment should be revoked or cancelled. because this will amount to a budget for a full financial year. And I had other recommendation which I made to the management. And number one was with regard to commitment letters with a deficit budget of 3 billion, that the fund or budget to meet this resultant expenditure be availed or this procurement be deferred to financial year 2020-2021, as the CEO had indicated. That the commitment letter issued to Kilik Limited should be cancelled, revoked with immediate effect, as this procurement does not meet the threshold of Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act 2015. I had indicated that this procurement should be conducted through a competitive process. That any continuation of fulfillment of this commitment letter will amount to a breach of the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act 2015. The third recommendation I made was that there should be no more issuing of commitment letters to prospective suppliers. Any procurement anticipated should be planned for and carried out in accordance to the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act 2015 through open tendering, as a member just indicated, because we had already adequate stocks of a number of these items. And number D, I indicated that Quality Assurance Department should be advised to stop any further evaluation of any samples, as this is giving prospective suppliers false impression that we are still carrying out emergency procurement. That procurement will only, the last recommendation was that procurement will only retrospectively process procurement for committed letters in its custody. So I have 3 advisories, and the last advisory I did was when I received a letter from the CEO with regard to Kilik Limited, and the comment was I discussed with the supplier, and I did an advisory to the CEO, and I advised that in line with the limited budget for COVID-19 items, and as earlier advised, kindly shelve this procurement until we have adequate finances. And therefore, I want to report this committee, as Honorable Owino had asked, did procurement, the technical person, advise KEMSA? I did advise KEMSA. That's my response to that question.
And I'll request you also table those advisory.
Yes. Madam Chair, will you allow us to interrogate on that point, or you want him to conclude?
Let him conclude his presentation, then you can.
Okay.
The other question which was asked is that the criteria used, I think the CEO had responded to it. We have a list of pre-qualified suppliers for, I think, 47 categories. And one of the categories for health products and technologies is supply of pharmaceuticals. The other one is supply of non-pharmaceutical. Non-pharmaceuticals involves procurement of all items that do not fall on pharmaceutical. And therefore, when we are carrying this procurement of COVID items, we agreed that any supplier who had been registered for supply of non-pharmaceutical could be able to qualify to provide an indent letter for supply of the COVID items. The other question which was asked is that, Honorable Chair, is that what is this called negotiation? I want to bring to the attention of the committee is that when we carry out direct procurement, is that even in the normal situations that when you carry out direct procurement, you will invite the one bidder that who is supposed to supply the item. The bidder will supply a bid. The CEO will appoint an ad hoc committee to negotiate with the supplier, agree on a price, prepare minutes, submit to the director of procurement, who will prepare an opinion for the CEO to award. In this case, when we are doing COVID procurement, which was a retrospective procurement, once the supplier delivered the item to KEMSA warehouse, it was a requirement that we follow the same procedure, because we are doing what we call it formalization. The prices which the bidders had indicated earlier in the letter was not a final price. And the indication was that the price you have indicated will be negotiated to acceptable price. So that was the essence of a negotiation team. And every item direct procurement that we issued to the COVID-19 suppliers, we had a committee negotiating with the suppliers. Where the suppliers, for somebody for KN95, their price was 980. The committee will be able to negotiate and inform the supplier to that the best price they can be able to offer or allow is 700. We have instances where the suppliers, for example, I remember a case where a supplier insisted for supply of thermometers. They could not supply the thermometers at a price which we had agreed maximum 10,000. They said they will only supply at 12,000. And the committee deferred and called them again to go and rethink. And the supplier came again, I think twice, and later agreed that you can be able to offer the item at the price of 10,000. So why we gave what we call it the maximum limit is based on the market survey and based on the bulkiness of the commodities we are buying. So we are ensuring that we are getting value for money we were procuring. And the other question which was asked by Honorable Chagagwa is that why KEMSA bought an item, K95 or N95 for 250. I can be able to report this committee that initially we had reached out to MEDS. And MEDS indicated to us that they had 1,000 pieces of this item from their old stock, and they could be able to avail it to us. So we agreed to buy the 1,000 items from them. And the price they're offering at then was 250. If you confirm with the MEDS, after that one, their prices which they bought the new commodity, it also went up. So therefore, when we went to the market, the only available price, the best price we were able to get, the K95 was 700. Yet in the market was 900. And therefore, that's why I can be able to explain the difference between the 250 and the 700. It was what was in stock previously at MEDS against what came on board during the COVID time. And Madam Chair, that's what I can be able to submit on the question which you asked.
Thank you. Do you have a
Clarification?
Clarification.
Yes.
And as we start, you talked about maximum limits.
Yes.
So now for the ones who have, what would happen? I think I just want to let this committee happen. You've given us an example of those, the ones with thermo, well, the thermo guns, and you couldn't agree on price. You told them to go rethink. If they insisted on 12,000, what would have been it? Would you have just offloaded their things or the items from their warehouse, you give them back, or what would have happened?
To respond that we never reached that situation, but then we will have agreed with management because a number of those items had not gone outside, had not been issued. Some of them were still in stock. So we'll be able to inform the supplier the consequence is that beyond a certain price, because we'll be buying an item beyond the market price. So either the management will be able to give an approval to release the commodity back because it had not been, the procurement process had not been finalized.
So the negotiations are as per the market price by the time of negotiation?
Yes, yes. But not at the time of you supplied the item. You supplied the item at April.
Yes.
And the market price then for a K95 was 700. Mm-hmm. The maximum price we'll be able to allow is 700.
Okay.
But if you get a better offer, we'll take it.
Okay. Honorable Kutuni?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you very much. Director of Procurement has explained, taken us through on the procurement process. But clearly you've indicated that you raised the alarm on 24th, should have been, I think it's 24th June or July, when you did the first advisory to the management committee, which I suppose it was supposed to, it is chaired by the CEO, who is here. And you've gone further, that upon advisory, that you are at 3.9 billion, you are advising that you stop the procurement further because it was surpassing the budget. I guess that is what you're trying to tell us. But then somebody disregarded your advice. Again, after 2 weeks, you did another advisory to the same management committee, which I suppose all of the management committees are here. At that time, the budget had busted to over 4.7. And then there was another third advisory that you did. The budget at that time was 5.6 billion. You appear to be a very honest person. But something that you are not telling the committee is that if you were ignored, what action did you take? This is an organization with organogram. If there is any problem at the senior director position of yours, if the CEO is ignoring you, you had the responsibility of reaching out to the chair and raise the concerns. And then the question is, why, despite of all the challenges that you are facing or going through, why at the point when your advisory was being ignored, why don't you take the action and report to the board? And I will put it to you that perhaps maybe you are trying only to be clever, knowing very well that you've already committed a mistake. And the only way to do is to prepare for a defense. So, Madam Chair, I would want Mr. Juma to confirm to the committee that whatever he was doing at that time was not a cover-up, but he was being frustrated by the so-called management committee. Thank you.
I think
Juma, you can take like 3 questions. I'll go to Honorable Jagagwa and Honorable Wino and Professor.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senior, I'll come back. I'll come to you. Yeah. Proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just pick it from where my colleague Vice Chairman has left it. My opinion, and this is my opinion, is that the Director of Procurement is being mischievous. I was being mischievous by his advisories. The reason is this, and that's my statement, Madam Chair.
Honorable Jagagwa, kindly put up your mask.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you look at all the letters of award to any given entity, they were never signed by the CEO, Dr. Jonah, but they were signed by Charles Juma. All of them. I have my file here, and there is not a single document that is signed by Jonah MANJARI. My statement is that what Juma is trying to do is to throw the CEO under the bus. My statement again is that at this point in time, you now know that you are alone, and God follows all. So why did you have to sign all these letters, knowing that you were overcommitting KEMSA? Yet on one hand, you write your advisories. On the other hand, you sign the award letters. That is actually conflicted personalities. Or even double speak, assuming you are speaking. But by dint of your letters of award, you're actually doing a double speak or conflicted personalities. That is one. Number 2, and Madam Chair, if you may, with your kind permission, that is why I said when we had a discussion with my senior that I'll get back to issues of award letters. There is a matter that I raised yesterday, and I raised it with the KEMSA board when they were here. Juma is by no means, he is well versed in matters procurement. That is why he's a director of procurement for KEMSA. There's a company called Lego Freighters. It is, when you go to the list of directors or the certificate of directorship, it is actually a business name whose sole business, as authenticated by this letter from the director, by the Register of Companies, is to carry out the nature of clearing and forwarding. Then how did he have to award them? How did he have to award Lego Freighters the tender for the supply of surgical masks, 60,000 pieces, amounting to 270 million? And these are people who should be carrying out the business of clearing and forwarding. I will refer him to Article 227 or 227 of our Kenyan Constitution, which says that public funds must be well utilized. Again, I will also refer him to what we are calling Section 30 of the PFM Act, that you cannot commit an entity, and you are the one who is committing, not even the chief executive, it is you, by your hand. You are committing that entity. I don't even think you have the powers to commit the entity. Procuring goods outside the budget that has been approved. Madam Chair, if you look at, again, Section 53, 8 and 9 of the Public Procurement Act, again it says you cannot commit when there's no money. So I put it to you, Bwana Juma, that your actions have actually brought Mr. Manjari on this floor. You have visited you by dint of your hand of a commitment. Your actions have visited the unfortunate events that you are finding Daktari in. In fact, I saw yesterday, and that leads me to my third question, Madam Chair. There was correspondence which was brought to us yesterday by the CS. The CS Honorable Kabwe, and the PS Mochache, Susan. There are clear letters from, I think, the director, Mr. Muredi, commercial director, where he is advising that they should not be doing more procurement. And now again you find Mr. Muredi here by dint of Juma's actions. He's the one who has made this gentleman to be kicked out of the office. Madam Chair, again, if you look at the letter, now that will bring my question to the chairman. If you look at the letter from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission of that 13th August 2020, it clearly advises the board to have these three gentlemen out of office to read for investigations. But Madam Chair, you heard Mr. Morelli speak for himself. And there are correspondences from Madam Ochache, the folder that was brought to us yesterday by Madam Ochache and Mr. Kago, Honorable Kago. There is nowhere, and you've heard Mr. Morelli explain himself out, there is nowhere that the commercial director is involved in procurement. So then, Honorable Chair, why send a gentleman who is not involved in procurement, whose only duty is to receive goods that have been procured away from office? I think for now, Madam Chair, no, I will also ask Juma, what kind of procurement were you doing? Was it a restricted tender or was it a direct procurement? And if it is either direct or restricted, if you go to section 74 and 75 of a direct procurement, there are conditions which are spelled out clearly when you should do a direct procurement. I've gone through those conditions one by one, and there is not a single one which talks of a pandemic, that during a pandemic you can do a restricted tender or a direct tender. You can read all of them, either in the old Procurement Act or in the current one. If you go to section 104 of the current one, they have again spelled out instances when you can do direct or restricted tender. But not a single one talks of a pandemic. So then how? And that now leads me to my question. How did you ever, as a director of procurement, advise the board, advise your senior management team to go for direct tender or direct procurement or restricted tender, when the act is clear that these are the instances, 7 of them or 5 of them, when you can do direct tender, restricted tender, but not a single one of them mentions the word a pandemic. So where did you get the authority to advise the board and your senior management to do direct or tender? So I put it to you, Bwana Juma, your actions, your acts of omission, acts of commission, has led to this management and the board being dragged to this house, because you indeed misadvised them. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And members, the other team was supposed to come in the afternoon is here, so I would like we go direct to the question, so we may be able to interrogate and also have the other team. And Sergeant at Arms, because we might not be able to take a health break, if you're able to get a few snacks for the members, you can just give them to where they are seated. I can see our senior energies are going down. So, Honorable Wino, and to the point so that we can be able to wind up.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very brief. KEMSA, you know, I've been a very good advocate for you because I know the distribution efficiency, which I have been witnessing where I was before, up to the dispensaries. So I've been a very loyal advocate. But what I'm hearing from the Director of Procurement and also Office of the CEO, then my first question goes now to the Chair of the Board, because you hire these people. Their job descriptions, what they're supposed to do, and what they are not supposed to do. So question number one, who is legally, according to the company policy, supposed to sign commitment letters? Is it the CEO? Is it the Director of Procurement, or both? I think that needs to be clear. Second question goes directly to Mr. Juma. You said almost 9 commitment letters you didn't know. Who signed them? Can we get copies of them to know where the problem is? Lastly, Chair, I think all these things we are gathering, we are doing so for the good of this country. So eventually, even from your standing point, Chairman, would be able to reform KEMSA, review how the structures and this tripartite arrangement, the ministry, the board, and the management, how they should work in coherence so that we don't delay, misappropriate, or lose public funds. So we want you to take this positively, that what we are doing here as a committee is to make this institution, which I love very much, function better than it is doing now, having heard how these different sections are playing each other. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Could we allow Mr. Juma to respond? Or Senior, do you want to go? Not to go away, just to ask a question.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I know what you mean.
Yes.
The senior management here is not telling us everything and actually causing themselves and everybody grievous harm. Going by what Mr. Juma said, I haven't heard the finance director make any comment. They have full information as a group, and they are making a decision which they know is not correct. And the CEO is saying he's not working under any pressure. While he was in the Senate, he actually indicated how this pressure was coming. I do not believe that people of this caliber, knowing what is right, are going to do something that is wrong unless there is a big reason they are doing it. So can they really explain to us why they all know as senior management that they say they have been meeting that these things they are doing are not really in line with procedures and they continue to do them? As much as now it looks it's the responsibility just for the CEO. Chair, I'm not convinced they have told us through. Anyone with the 3 of them will say that. Number 2, who is the CEO answerable to? Is the CEO answerable to the ministry or to the board? And at what time does the CEO and the senior management refer a matter to the board? Even if you get an instruction from ministry or from anywhere, there is a board in place. When do they say, let this matter go before the board and the board sanction it? Does that work in that ministry? I think those 2 questions, even the chair can come in and weigh in, because that's where the matter lies. Thank you, Chair.
Professor?
Thank you very much, Chair. I will be very quick on this. I have listened quite much, and my colleagues have actually alluded to a number of things that I wanted to discuss. But having said that, I have got 2 aspects of my questions. Here is to the board, and here is to the management. The chairman of the board, the question I really want to ask is, has Juma ever contacted you, Director Juma? Has he ever contacted you? And has he ever discussed with you of the challenges that he is particularly facing? And if the answer is the affirmative, to the affirmative, what particular actions have you taken? And what have you really done? The next question is about the cumulative term of a CEO in a parastatal an institution is about, it should not be more than 6 years. That's as per the Constitution. A cumulative of 6 years, that's what I'm saying, which means 3 years and 3 years. How about the procurement staff, particularly the procurement director? What did you do about your position in ensuring that procedures are followed? Who should remain at the helm for how long should they be? As per the law. I also wonder why you have done. You were also privy, and if you are not, you will tell us, Chairman. Why did you commit to such amount of 3.5 or whatever billion that you were mentioning? More than the budgeted amounts for commitments, because the management directly works under you. You are responsible for the funding, budgeting, and planning, procurement planning, for that matter. You have even told us about your budgeting planning initially for the June 2020. Now, Chairman, in my final question, is there any sort of an atom, may it be, of responsibility you should take on the issues raised in KEMSA? And why should you not tell us why you shouldn't take responsibility? The President has cracked the whip, and we're so happy. He has cracked the whip on corruption. 21 days is not far off for it to end, to elapse. My final question is not to you, but to the management now. The suspended CEO, we want to know the funds held between UHC and COVID-19. And I really want to make a serious discussion at a later time in our committee meetings on the issue between the thin line between UHC and the COVID-19. Many of the questions that I would have raised and assertions I would have put were done yesterday. But coming back to Juma, Director Juma, procurement starts and ends at, with you. It does start and end with you. You argued that you were within the law as per Public Procurement Act 2015, Section 2A or B. Fine, that is fine. But was this minuted by your board and KEMSA staff meetings? And do you have documentations to indicate that you have actually done as per within the regulation? Yes. As per within the Constitution? Yes. But has there been discussions and minutes done to the board and, being given the green light to do what you wanted to do? Honorable Jagagwa has mentioned that you have signed all these procurement documents. Why do you wish away responsibilities over it? And my final point of thing is about the acting CEO. How prepared are you for the challenging task to regain the great glory of KEMSA? The public is looking at you. Are you prepared for it? If you're not, you better tell us. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd request that we have the response. A lot of questions go directly to Juma because we had also already to do the submission. There were questions that were raised. And the person also in charge of the PS at the board of KEMSA. So I'll go to Juma first. I will allow the chair, then the CEO. Let me do it again. Juma, CEO, then chair, and then I'll go to Muridi. And do you have your legal person here, chair? Who is the legal person? Do you have a legal person, acting CEO?
Yes, Fred Wanyonyi, he is not here.
He is not here?
Yes.
Okay. Finance?
Chair, I'm the representative of the PS in the bond.
Okay. Do you have your finance person? Okay. Fine. Thank you. So, Juma?
Thank you, Honorable Madam Chair. The first question which was asked by Honorable Gutunyi is that when issuing this advisory or opinion, and it was disregarded, what did I do? My responsibility is that I report to the Chief Executive Officer, who is my supervisor, and I have a responsibility to advise on matters of procurement. That's what the law requires me to do. And therefore, when these procurements were ongoing, when we reached 3.9, we had not broken the law, we had not surpassed the budget, and therefore, this advisory was not mischievous. I was advising, informing the senior management that we had reached 3.9 billion, and therefore, in my own thinking, we should be able to stop because the letters of commitment which had been issued out were adequate to obtain the items which were required. And also I want to bring to the attention of the honorable members that all the commitment letters which were issued to the suppliers were signed by the Chief Executive Officer. None of them was signed by the Director of Procurement. And I remember in one meeting which the chair was there, and the CEO, myself, and the Director of Commercial Services, the chairman alluded to the fact that all commitment letters should only be signed by the Chief Executive Officer. And that's what we adhere to. So there's no commitment letter issued to any supplier for COVID-19 which was signed by the Director of Procurement. And therefore, my actions in making advisory was to inform the senior management of the risk of going above the budget and therefore breaking the law. So it was not mischievous. The other question which was asked was that by Honorable Jagagwa, direct procurement was mysterious. And I want to report that just indicated that when this procurement for COVID-19 began, it was agreed by the senior management that the procurement of this item will be done from suppliers who will have indicated they will be able to supply this item to KEMSA, as the CEO had indicated. And therefore, all the Indian letters were addressed to the Chief Executive Officer, marked to me for just drafting the letters, and the signing was done by the CEO. So not one time did I act on my own violation. So all commitment to the suppliers were authorized by the Chief Executive Officer. And Honorable Chagwaga also brought the issue of a supplier, the name Regal Freighters Limited, knowing that their nature of business was clearing and forwarding. Why did I award this supplier to supply 6,000 packets of face masks? And I want to indicate that the Regal Suppliers was one of the commitment letters which was issued by the CEO. It was not issued by procurement. So this is an authority which was given by the accounting officer, and I could not be able to veto it, because an accounting officer is responsible for all procurement in KEMSA. So he's the one who issued these letters. It was not issued by procurement. The drafting and its preparation was prepared not in procurement. And therefore, I may not be able to respond to why the CEO awarded or gave Regal's freighters to supply this item, because he's the one who authorized them to supply this item. He's one of the suppliers whom the CEO authorized to supply the item. He might have been having some valid reasons. The other question which was asked was that what kind of procurement were we doing when we were undertaking COVID-19 procurement? I want to take the honorable members to the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act, Section 103, which is Section E. It deals on direct procurement. And you may note that when you deal with the various methods of procurement, the first method of procurement is open tender, and the second one is two-stage tendering, the third one is design competition, the fourth one is restricted tender, and the fifth one is direct procurement. And therefore, we are dealing with the direct procurement because this is the method we determined, and we agree that this is the only method we can be able to use during procurement for COVID items. And therefore, Section E, or E of direct procurement, Section 1031, it says, a procuring entity may use direct procurement as allowed under subsection 2, as long as the purpose is not to avoid competition. Section 2 says, a procuring entity may use direct procurement if any of the following are satisfied. It gives conditionalities. Section A says, the goods, works, or services are available only from a particular supplier or contractor, or a particular supplier or contractor has exclusive right in respect of the goods, works, or services, and no reasonable alternative or substitute exists. Section B, it says, due to war, invasion, disorder, natural disaster, or there is an urgent need for the goods, works, or services, and engaging in tendering procedures or any other method of procurement will therefore be impracticable, provided that the circumstances giving rise to the urgency were neither foreseeable by the procuring entity nor the result of deliberative conduct on its part. COVID-19 was not foreseeable. We could not be able to know that we will be able to have this act. And Section C says, owing to a catastrophic event, there is an urgent need for the goods, works, or services, making it impracticable to use other methods of procurement because of the time involved in using those methods. And Section D says, the procuring entity having procured goods, equipment, technology, or services from a supplier or contractor determines that additional supplies shall be procured from that supplier or contractor for reasons of standardization or because of need for compatibility with existing goods, equipment, technology, or services, taking into account the effectiveness of original procurement in meeting the needs of the procuring entity, the limited size of the proposed procurement in relation to the original procurement, the reasonableness of the prices and suitability of alternative of the goods, services in question. The last requirement that for the acquiring of goods, works, or services provided by a public entity, provided that the acquisition price is fair and reasonable and compares well with the known prices of goods, works, or services in circumstances. And Section D, we did use it. Section E, where we procure goods from KEMRI and the Rivertex. And therefore, in this procurement for COVID, we did apply Section 103(2) B and C. And therefore, we did not apply restricted tendering because it will be time involving. It will be invite bidders, wait them to submit bids, evaluate, wait for 14 days, notify, and wait for a minimum of 21 days to sign the contract. So that method will not have been applicable where you are looking for procurement of goods in urgent. And therefore, the method which we used was Section 103 of the law, which gives us that outline. And also the document which I gave, the Public Procurement and Regulatory Authority Advisory and the Solicitor General Advisory advised us how to undertake procurement through direct procurement for COVID items. The other question which was asked is that by Honorable Wino, is that the commitment letters which I've just indicated, which legally authorized or allowed to sign the commitment letters, all the commitment letters for COVID items were signed by the accounting officer, who is the chief executive officer. None of those letters were signed by the director of procurement. The director of procurement only signed what we call it notifications of award. When we did the formalization, I think that's the letter which the honorable member was showing. It is not a commitment letter. It's a notification of award after the delivery of goods. The items have been supplied and the formalization process has been undertaken, and therefore I was only notifying of the outcome of a tender where a commitment letter had earlier been authorized by the chief executive officer. The other question which was wished to respond is on which was asked by a professor, and whether I did ever one time conducted the chair. When this issue came on board, the chair requested me at one time to give him a brief of what transpired or what took place. and give him copies of the advisory I wrote, and I did a summary, and I sent it to the chair. So I did brought to the attention of the chair the advisory which had already done to the senior management. I think, Madam Chair, maybe those what I can be able to remember, unless there's another question which it has kept me. The other question maybe I can remember is a procurement staff, and with the head of procurement, was the requirements of the law minuted as per the act or the regulations. We want to confirm that every procurement we undertook for direct procurement, for every tender or every supplier, there was a requirement that we do an authority letter which indicated the requirements of the law, which was approved by the CEO. And after that one, we issued an invitation letter to the supplier who had delivered the items to the White House based on a commitment letter. And then a negotiation committee was appointed by the CEO, an ad hoc one, to negotiate with the supplier. Then all these documents are available in each respective file. If you look at a file for a specific supplier, you will be able to note and get every respective authority that was granted by the accounting officer. I'd like to submit.
Thank you. Unless something that was not answered, we go to the CEO.
So, thank you very much. I would wish to restrict myself to the few questions that had been directed to me or touching or on my office or in my office at the time I was there. I wish to state, Madam Chair, that the procurement for COVID items were unprecedented. We have no regulations on how to do emergency procurement, and that's why we relied on the advisory that were quoted and the section that was quoted, section 69 on the retrospective procurement. On the matter of the 9 companies that have been mentioned, as there is no SOPs as to where the commitment letters drafting should be done, during this period, we came up with an innovative method that the commitments letters drafting will be done in the office of the procurement director for safe custody and for reference during the tracking of what we have procured. At one stage, the procurement director was indisposed and was away from office, and I did the commitment letters and referred all the letters to his office for ease of reference. I wish to state that the letter and the advisory that he gave on the 21st of April, we did discuss as management, and we agreed that we will continue procuring and resource mobilization will commence, and we did commence the resource mobilization. As to all the other 3 memos that have been commented on, I would only restrict myself to the last one. The other 2 were not in my knowledge, and the final one, I did concur with his advisory, and we did defer the 3.3 billion procurement to this current financial year, and we agreed that subsequent procurements would be open tender, and we said we will not give commitment letters subsequent on the emergency procurement, and we will adhere to the quality that had been mentioned earlier. Professor Nyikal, Honorable, mentioned about a discussion that we had in Senate. It was misconstrued to mean that I was under pressure. I was not under pressure. The communications that came from the PS office and from the CS were not in any way to put pressure on me. They were operational discussions, and we were on a discussion of how we will continue mitigating the effects of COVID. It was not that I was under instructions from them or under pressure from them to do any procurement. The letters that will be provided by the acting CEO on the procurement, direct procurement, especially for the test kits, you'll be able to see that in those letters, there is no pressure. It's only advising that we buy from Biosensor, Sansure, Abbott, and Roche companies for the test kits. I would also wish to comment that the acting CEO will be able to provide the utilization of the UHC funds and the COVID funds committed by KEMSA. And what I would want to explain to this committee, Madam Chair, is that UHC is under drawing rights, where counties do draw down on the request that they make through our LMIS, and after delivery and proof of delivery, that money is transited from the UHC account to the KEMSA drug account for us to be able to access that money for operational use or for revolving fund to buy more commodities. On the aspect of the cumulative term of the CEO, I will refer the member to the KEMSA Act, which provides that the CEO shall serve a term of 4 years, renewable once, upon satisfactory performance. That act has not been revised.
I'll just correct that.
And I wish to read: the Chief Executive Officer shall serve for a term of 4 years upon satisfactory performance and shall be eligible for reappointment by the Cabinet Secretary for another 1 further term. On the issue of the other directors in KEMSA, the directors do serve on permanent and pensionable, and they are appointed by the board and recruited by the board. I would also wish to comment that and confirm that it's true commitment letters were signed by the Chief Officer, that is myself, upon the discussions that we held as senior managements on the commodities that we are procuring, but all notifications, as it has been clarified, were signed by the procurement director. So even by the time we were reaching this, even by the time we were reaching the 5.3 billion procurement, the letters were signed to notify the suppliers of their award. I would also wish to comment that, Madam Chair, on what you had asked me earlier on the company called Killing. It is true we gave them a commitment letter on the 9th of April, and this commitment letter was done on the basis when we had at the height of the crisis in this country, and they demonstrated that they did have a cargo freight full of commodities destined to Kenya. And upon subsequent reviews, we realized that they did not have that capacity. And upon the advice that was discussed earlier, we did cancel that commitment letter, and not a single item was delivered to KEMSA from that company, and no contract was signed, and no payment was given or paid to that company. So it was just a wish that they could supply KEMSA, but their wish was never realized. because they were not able to perform. I wish to state that, Madam Chair, that on the matters that are under investigation, we have given our statements, and we wish that we will be cleared of this alleged scandal, because I wish to confirm that there is no scandal. Thank you.
Mr. Muridi.
Madam Chair, I have nothing to add apart from the fact that you requested I submit written submissions. I will do that. I'm guided. Thank you.
The representative of the PS, when all this was happening in advisories, did you take this feedback back to the Mother Ministry?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wish to respond by saying that I represent the Principal Secretary, Minister of Health in the KEMSA board, which I believe, Madam Chair, I able to do, and the Chair, who is present here, can confirm that. And that I participate in all the board deliberations, both the full board, special board, and at committee levels. And that, as a representative to the Principal Secretary, I'm supposed actually to report back to the PS. And let me say that, Madam Chair, that before any board meeting in KEMSA, I always share the agenda, invitation agendas of the KEMSA.
Please don't take us around, just go straight to the
Yes.
point. The question is, did you report to the PS what was happening, or did you not? So the others are
yes, Madam Chair, I reported regularly to the PS on what was happening in KEMSA, but the gap which, on this matter, Madam Chair, the gap which is there at the board level on what happened is the gap which is at the board level, Madam Chair, is the gap of information which actually I could not bring as far as what the PS required to know. So that gap which is there at the PS level is the same gap which is at the board level, just as it has been clearly put several times, Madam Chair, in these meetings.
So where is the gap? Just be very clear. Where is the gap?
The gap of what happened as far as these procurements in KEMSA are concerned and what the board knew. That's a gap.
You want to confirm that the board was not aware, they didn't know what was happening all this time?
Absolutely, Madam Chair. That's a true position.
Okay.
Yeah, that gap is there, and that gap is there, and that's a gap actually I could. That's a gap also the PS and the ministry. There is.
But I've seen, as I said, there was communication between the ministry and KEMSA on what was supposed to, they gave authority to incur expenditure.
Madam Chair, I wish to make a comment.
A comment on that?
Yes.
Okay, let me just finish this. So there was communication between the ministry and the KEMSA on the authority to incur expenditure. So as a board member, were you not concerned, on the amounts that were going on? Totally you were on the dark, you didn't know what was happening.
Madam Chair, the amounts of the procurement from the KEMSA capital, the bond, including myself as a representative in the ministry, we were in the dark, and I was also equally in the dark.
Okay.
Yes.
Suspended CEO, want to make a comment before I take it up?
Madam Chair.
Yes, make your comment.
It would be mischievous to say that kind of a comment. I would want to say that the board, and indeed Mr. Dr. Mbuva, between the month of March and the month of June, they knew what was happening in KEMSA. They visited KEMSA. And at one stage, I believe when they came and found so many cars parked outside, they would not have imagined that the CEO is doing a political rally. We were actually engaging suppliers who who had come to do supplies. I do remember that the chairman used to come and make, advisory, and at the end of all this, you'll be visited by all investigating arms. So do everything right. So for someone to say they were not aware, to me, I would wish to say that is not correct. We held board meetings, we did board updates, board reports, and I don't want to comment further. The only issue here we are discussing and has been confirmed by the chair is the approved budget 4.6 and the budget that we incurred of excess of 3 billion. But as to what was happening, Dr. Mbuva and Kano Kuria even visited our warehouse to confirm that we have those commodities in our warehouse. Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Chair, let me just, that is related to the question I raised. That as a clarification, even if there is a clear instruction from the ministry on a major issue, were there board papers, board reports prepared and put before the board to discuss and say the ministry has said we have 700 something million and we are going to do this because this is a COVID emergency and seek the concurrence of the board? Because if there's an emergency, the emergency is not just for the ministry, it is for the board as well. And I would expect that when the CEO has a major decision like that to make, that decision is taken before the board, even emergency board meetings are called, and that is then discussed, and the board is aware. What is coming here is like the board doesn't know. There's more communication between the CEO and the ministry, and not clear one between the CEO or the executive and the board. Can the chair comment on this, please?
I take recognize that the chair have not answered the question, so that will be additional. Maybe you'll also take this this committee on the structures, the structure of management and the board. You can take us through. Honorable Emaniko.
Mine is an observation, Chair. What we are witnessing, the discrepancies, the blame game between the management and even within the management, the different departments and the board and the MOH is a clear indication of a serious problem that we are yet to identify.
Madam Chair.
Yes,
Madam Chair,
Vice Chair, and then then we allow the chair to
Yesterday I did raise this issue directly to the PS about his or her representative to the board. And when I was raising the issue, I did not know you. Yeah, I neither have any vendetta, because I even can't pronounce your name, because I'm not used to. But listening to you, it confirms the fears of every member of this committee that actually we need restructuring of KEMSA. Owino has alluded to the same issue, Honorable. From the first day we started investigating this matter. And listening to you, it appears to me that you have no idea why you are sitting in that board. As a representative, you don't represent the PS. You represent the ministry. By extension, you represent the president in that board. And this is what we are seeing every day. That you make the government look so bad. When the president is working so hard to mitigate on this, going an extra mile, then you as his representative, you are letting him down. Waswahili wanasema mkala muue, haki yake mpatie. The CEO has just confirmed that you've had meetings on a number of issues. And here you are lying openly that there was communication breakdown. And you're a government representative in that board. I think part of the recommendation will be the representative of the ministry, or the PS, the so-called, in that board is inefficient and is disconnected from what is happening between KEMSA and the ministry.
That is what is coming out clearly. The reason why we have this corruption now, the reason why we have all this issue, the so-called COVID gate, the reason why we've got all this name calling, it is because of people like you, whom when appointed, they don't go and do what it is expected of them. So will I put it in to you that you did not play the role that you are expected to play, and you are not fit for that, to sit in that board? Will that be, or will I be right if I put it to you that way? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Owino and honorable members, I would like we finalize on this matter. We have other witnesses waiting. And so, Owino, make it brief.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And just following what Honorable Kutunya have said, I just want to put this directly also to the Chair. Is your board functional? And what is the quorum of that board? Because we have been going through around that board, we don't know how efficient is this board functioning. So I think we need candid answer. Now, to the CEO, the first impression I got was that you signed the commitment letters because the director was unwell. And that brings another question. If the director is deposed, who else is legally allowed to transact on his business? Is it the CEO or there is a deputy director? You know, all this should come to us well. So if there is lacuna in the policy or regulations that you're dealing with, then we can help to restructure all this or bring some more information. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Chair.
Thank you.
Honorable Chair.
That's Juma.
Yes, I want to just respond on an issue. The CEO indicated that when the commitment letters for the 9 bidders were written, I was indispossessed. I want to confirm to this committee, I was not indispossessed. I was in the office. Only one day was I away in the office, on 5th of June, when the letter for shop and buy was written. All the other letters, I was in the office. So that allegation that I was indispossessed, I have not been dispossessed. And on that day of 5th, I requested for permission for 1 day off only. During the COVID items, I have been in the office 24/7.
Well noted. Chair?
Chair, can I?
Who is it?
Chair, can I? Sorry.
Let's hear Chair first. Go. Chair.
May I request that I come last so that if you allow me, I can make closing remarks?
Yes. Okay, then representative of PS.
Yeah,
and then I go to the CEO, the CEO, and then we finalize with the Chair.
Yeah, Chair, thank you very much. Let me say that as a representative of the PS, my contribution to the way things are supposed to be done in KEMSA at the bond level would only come through the bond reparations, Madam Chair, through the various agenda items which are brought at the bond level. And therefore, if a matter has not been brought through that procedure, Madam Chair, and I have failed as a representative of the PS to give the necessary direction or guidance on that matter, I would say I would agree that I have failed. But let me say that in this matter, which is which is under discussion, it is very clear that at the bond level, from the meeting which was held on 19th of May, between that time and the time when now we are talking about these items having been procured and delivered in KEMSA, there was very little in terms of guidance which was brought at the bond level for us to give direction on, Madam Chair, with due respect.
We've heard you. The CEO.
Yeah, Madam Chair, as I said earlier, all commitment letters were done and signed, rather were signed in my office. When I said Mr. Juma was indisposed, I said in some instances when I did sign, drafted the commitment letter, at some instances he was indisposed. On the issue of the aspect that has been brought forward, that we don't have, a clear communication between the board and the Minister of Health. All letters are signed and dispatched to the PS, and they are received. All board meetings are recorded, board attendances are signed, and allowances are paid on time. So I would wish to say that, this, what we used to give our board updates on the procurements done through Supply Chain Committee and through the Finance and Strategy Committee, would even give the updates on how far we have utilized the funds. So those minutes are there, and the legal director, who is the custodian of those minutes and the attendances, will be able to give those documents, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. You said we didn't have the legal director here and the finance. Yeah, I want to give you, you've been listening, and you are finally the one to be. Could you give your comments?
Yes, Madam Chair, just for record purposes, there was a submission by the CEO, Dr. Manjari, that there has been a growth of income from 2.8 billion to 4.04 billion from the financial year 2015-2016 to 2019-2020. I wish to confirm the same, Madam Chair, and I will give a detailed report in writing to confirm the same. Also on the issue of the reserves, the documents that will come later through the CEO will have that information. The other thing, Madam Chair, I wish to comment is the issue of UHC funds. Madam Chair, UHC funds are intact. Not even a shilling has been used for the wrong purpose, for any other purpose apart from UHC. I wish to confirm that. Out of the 12.5 billion that we received, 5.4 billion has been used, and 7.1 billion is still intact. And we can provide that information, Madam Chair. The chairman had alluded to this, and I wish to maintain the same position. Madam Chair, lastly, there was a question by Honorable Koros on the issue of whether we receive funds from Treasury Direct. Madam Chair, confirm we don't receive funds from Treasury Direct. All funds come through our parent ministry, apart from where we play an agency role to the Global Fund, and we are paid fees for giving services to the Global Fund. The principal recipient is domiciled at the National Treasury, and that's the only instance where we receive funds directly from the National Treasury. Thank you, Madam Chair.
So would you be able to tell this committee how much money you are holding into your accounts?
I will provide that information, Madam Chairman.
All right.
Yeah.
Acting CEO, before I go to the chair, last time you appeared here, we talked about 300 million. 300 million that was given to you, that was in the month of May, from the Ministry of Health. You were given authority to incur expenditure and buy the reusable masks for the vulnerable communities. There have been issues here that the Chamber of Commerce was supposed to procure. Where are we at that point? Where are we now? Have you already given out the tender, or have the masks been delivered? You're negotiating. Which point are we at the issue of 300 million masks, the reusable one for vulnerable Kenyans?
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the reusable masks, the process is still ongoing.
It's ongoing.
Yes.
This issue of process is ongoing. It happened even last week. So where are we? We just want a very direct answer.
We are negotiating, and tomorrow the Chamber of Commerce is coming for a meeting to conclude this matter. We shall close it at that point.
Now, did you do what was his name, reverse? So because if you are negotiating, that means already the items are at your warehouse, or how are you doing this one?
Now, this is not an emergency procurement. We followed it in the normal way. Advert, then the documents come. So this is not reverse process. It is not reverse process.
So you want to, can you confirm to this committee that then a tender was advertised, issued, and the bid was won, and now you are What are you negotiating?
Chair.
Just want to be clear.
Chair, that is very interesting. We have a pandemic going on, and we appropriated that money that people can be prevented because masks have been proved to prevent COVID-19 infection by 80%. And now what we are hearing, that this was not an emergency.
No, not only that, Chair, we are buying masks at 700 shillings instead of 250 because we are in an emergency. The same time we are also saying the masks that we are making ourselves for the people of Kenya are not emergency. What kind of contradiction? And Chair, that is the first money we actually asked. You and some of us were in the ministry and told the minister that if you are going to protect Kenyans, give Kenyans who don't have money masks.
Honorable Chair, can I respond to that? Because I have details.
Yes, Juma.
Honorable Chair, I want to respond to that. When this procurement came on board for 300 million, I and the CEO were in the office. We wrote to the ministry because in the letter there was an indication that we consult the Chamber of Commerce. So we called the president of the Chamber of Commerce. We had a meeting in KEMSA where we agreed that we write to the PS seeking for an okay that will be able to procure the items directly from Chamber of Commerce, who will be able to mobilize the item from the various enterprises across the country. And the PS wrote to us, giving us an okay, and therefore I wrote an authority to the accounting officer, which was approved by the CEO, which is a direct procurement for emergency procurement for those items. And therefore, a bid was prepared and the Chamber of Commerce was invited. By the time we were living in the office, the process was ongoing. So I can be able to confirm it is not a normal procurement.
So that tells us that it has not moved since you left office because the acting CEO seemed not to be aware.
Madam Chair, point of clarification. The underlying theme of why we are here is about process. So this is something that we had to look into to make sure that process is followed. So that is the answer. Chamber of Commerce are coming in tomorrow and we'll be able to conclude the matter from there. Because we did not want to end up in a similar situation like we are now. Thank you.
No, Chair, we cannot take that. We cannot take that statement. Now you are contradicting yourself. When you go for direct procurement, that is an emergency stage. We understand you're just joining, but I think Juma has really clarified why we appropriated that money. It came from this chamber. So saying that is a process, we all know processes, but some processes are more of emergency nature that cannot be normal. That's what we are saying, and that's why we are surprised when you are saying it is a normal tender. So you have to own that. If you didn't get it right when they are going out, then you should say so, right?
Madam Chair, to confirm, I'm owning it. There's no contradiction here. We just wanted to ensure that due process is fully followed. So we will conclude this as fast as we can. Thank you.
When I see you, could you give us a time frame? Could you give us a time frame when this issue is going to be concluded? Is it tomorrow you're concluding it, and when are we getting the mask to the public?
Allow me to communicate officially to your office tomorrow.
At what time tomorrow?
Tomorrow morning.
I want to see you since you took over that seat. You've been trying to be very elusive. Very elusive. You know, you try to be gaugy. And you know, we've been around for long. So we know people who can take the committee round. So be very careful we don't categorize you as a very elusive, someone who appears in the committee in a very clever way. So be very careful. What we are saying is that we don't want to be communicated tomorrow. You know very well. What are you discussing tomorrow? And if it is an issue of conclusion, you know how many days? 14 days? Is it 10 days? Yeah.
Honorable Member, Madam Chair, we are meeting in chamber tomorrow morning. I'll communicate immediately thereafter.
And I hope in your communication we have timelines on when we expect these masks to go out to vulnerable Kenyans.
It will have dates of delivery dates when we expect the first batch.
Very good. And Chair, you can now make your comments as you conclude. And also, Chair, just tell us about that, the 300 million. If you want to add a voice on that, proceed.
Oh, thank you very much, Madam Chair. The questions that were raised, or issues that were raised with me, are not many, and most of the other issues have been answered too. Honorable Wino asked the question, who is supposed to sign the commitment letters, and I believe that has been answered, that the procurement person, and then they were signed by the CEO after they had gone through the process. Dr. Nyikal asked to whom is the CEO answerable, and the CEO is answerable to the board. Now, I was asked, why did we send Mr. Murithi on suspension? That was coming from Honorable Jagagwa, who has since left. And the issue was, why did we send him on suspension, and yet he was not in the list involving procurement? Let me put it this way, that, like I've said, there are investigations going on. I've read out to you the letter from EACC. It is actually in volume 1 folder of file that I gave out when I was here last, I think it was last week. And the investigations are going on. Now, Honorable Jagagwa would say that, that Mr. Eliud Murithi has nothing to do with procurement. I may think so too, but the investigations are ongoing, and once we get the answers to them, like I said candidly earlier on, what will happen then to Mr. Eliud Murithi, Mr. Charles Juma, and to Dr. Manjari would depend very much on the results of the investigations that are going on. But I do not think it would be good at this time for me or for anybody else to try to preempt the investigations that are currently going on. Honorable Professor asked me whether Mr. Juma did get to me directly. What happened, like I mentioned to you, the 3 directors who confirmed to you, in fact all the directors who confirmed to you, that I was sitting with them at the commencement of this COVID thing. And I told them that, listen, you have told me it's going to be emergency procurement. You are going to do procurement as an emergency, but I want to tell you one thing. And I told them, and they will confirm with you, Mr. Juma has confirmed it. I told them to make sure that the procurements were done correctly. That if you ask them one by one, including the finance director who is not on suspension, they will tell you I communicated that with them. And I told them from my own experience, because I've been a member of parliament, I've been a senator. I told them that in this kind of situation, at the end of it all, I told them you are going to see EACC here, you are going to see DCI here, and you are going to see so many people here, including the Office of the General, wanting to know what happened, if anything happened. And what I told them is exactly what is